I wasn't sure what I was getting into when I purchased Neo Sprint from the Atari VCS shop. Honestly, I didn't even realize it was a modernization of the classic Sprint series arcade games until I saw the screenshots in the store and seen that it was an overhead view. Then it finally clicked. But I got excited once I learned that, and I gladly paid $15 to play it. Initially, I was working on a review, but I learned that this game is actually in early access. Even though I don't think they made it clear enough, I'm still okay with that. I actually like it better, because there are some things the developers over at Headless Chicken will need to address. But before we get into that, let's get the facts. Neo Sprint is a modern remake of the Sprint arcade game that would later lead to Sprint Master on the Atari 2600 and games like Super Sprint on the NES. It's a top-down racing game, just like its predecessor, and you can take on up to 7 other racers in a single-player campaign, a Grand Prix, which is best of 4 races, and a free race mode where you can customize a lot of the options, or in obstacle courses, which are essentially time trials with some added challenge and hazards that you have to avoid. Oh, and there's a time trial, complete with a ghost vehicle to show you what you need to beat. You can play up to 8 players locally, if you have enough controllers and friends, both of which I'm short on at the moment. But that's an incredible inclusion, and I bet this would be a fun party game for people who enjoy casual games. You also have the ability to create your own course, which allows you to make your dream track come true, and then you can share it with friends or even strangers to let them try to beat your times. It's pretty cool, but I think all but the large size is pretty much too limiting. But it's fun to mess with, and I'm sure a few players will make some amazing tracks to race on. And this will add nearly infinite replay value, depending on how large the community is. You can download other people's creations, create your own Grand Prix events with their tracks, and your own, along with the originals, which makes for variations that are technically endless. So with the proper gameplay, this could be a never-ending treasure trove. But let's focus on what the gameplay is like, and for that, let's look at the campaign. You start with access to a paltry 4 tracks, but you'll need to play through the campaign mode to unlock not only more courses, but more cars, paint schemes, and build-a-track parts, which is great. And there's a ton of courses as you work your way through the Centipede Cup, Pong Cup, and Major Havoc/Adventure Cup. You have to place in the top 3 of each race in order to move on. You have a total of 4 tries to do it. In the final race, you'll compete with a generic opponent who is usually wearing some cool Atari fire suit. Seriously, I'd love to have the Jaguar one myself. This continues the trend of Atari VCS games giving nods to the company's history, and I love it, I really do. Atari is becoming so good at this fan service stuff. What I'm not 100% happy with is the gameplay currently. You see, in the beginning of each race, the opponents have a tendency to bunch up, and it can hinder you greatly, allowing 1 or 2 opponents to get out in front and stay there. Add in the fact that you often have other cars driving under your back bumper and lifting you off the ground, removing your ability to steer, and you have a formula for some frustrating gameplay. Which is a shame because Neo Sprint is not always like this. The early races and 2nd through 4th races and the cups are much better because you don't have to deal with the opponents beating on you so much. When you can get into some clear space, the game is absolutely a blast. Well, usually, as you apply the handbrake to fly through corners and cut past hairpin turns. It feels really good, until something in the foreground blocks your view, causing you to hit a curve or obstacle that was hidden to your sight. They try to do a pixely cutaway when you're behind an object, but it just doesn't work. If they could find a way to keep the CPU from bunching up and allow you to see past objects somehow, I think the game could be really solid gameplay-wise. But with those issues, it can become overly frustrating and just plain not fun at times. The track designs are pretty good. You have small, medium, and large tracks, and while I feel the small ones are usually too claustrophobic, the medium and large ones are usually laid out pretty well, allowing you to build speed, catch air, make jumps, and navigate satisfying turns. Again, it's a shame that your view gets blocked, causing you to have issues, because if it weren't for that, I'd say the gameplay is fantastic. Let's focus on the graphics and audio for just a few minutes. The game is made using Unity, and because of that, it looks mostly generic. There are nice touches of Atari logos and IPs, and I do enjoy those, but the racers in general, including your opponents, have little to no personality, and they feel like they could be from any budget racing title. The cars look nice, and I love the Atari paint jobs, but without them, again, it feels like it could be any generic racing game. But outside of that, there is a ton of content. with 9 different car models and an insane amount of paint variations, not to mention the fact that the cars feel and play differently from one another, which is nice. I would be much more lenient if it was easier to unlock the Atari paint jobs, but as I sit now, I've dealt with too many typical paint schemes before getting access to the cool stuff, and I don't care for that. Give us a few cool paints from the start, just to get us going. The sound is up-tempo and the beats are driving with nice racing elements like motors buzzing, etc. But again, it's just not memorable. I won't be humming any of these in the shower tonight, let's put it like that. What is great is the whining of the open-wheeled motors, and the nice weighty crunches and slams that you'll hear. It sounds really competitive, and honestly it's just right. I think the sound effects are fantastic, and honestly as I sit here writing this, the rhythmic tune of the stat screen isn't bad. Okay, the music is passable, but the sound effects are pretty darn good in my opinion. Now, being in early access, I have encountered a few issues. I actually had the game crash after beating a particularly difficult boss racer, and that sucked. Luckily, I caught it on video here. Not sure if this was a VCS issue or if the game was having an issue, but the winner's circle screen never appeared, and I never got credit for the win. Bummer. I also had an issue where a menu was overlaid on the screen the entire time I was trying to beat a level. I managed to do it because, after all, I am the pro system gamer, but it wasn't easy, and I had to reset it in order to get rid of it. But these things happen in early access games, and I'm willing to give it a pass as long as they're fixed in time for a true release. So I guess the question is it worth picking up right now? Is it worth $15 to play a game in its current state? And well, I guess that depends. It is going to be an exclusive VCS game to my understanding, and there aren't many of those out there. But I think Neo Sprint is a brilliant game to make a VCS exclusive, and it's one that likely isn't going to be missed by the general gaming public. But Atari fans will love the nod to the series. The Atari-themed banners and paint schemes on the cars are a sight to see for fans, but the rest of the game is pretty generic looking, unfortunately. Which is a shame, because the presentation, the options, and the audio are all top-notch. There is a lot to do here for your money, and they show signs that they might be adding more. And if you have the ability to play with 8 players or more, then this game will surely be a favorite for party nights. It's a shame that playing the CPU can be so frustrating, because of them bunching up and bouncing you around. This, combined with the fact that you can't see obstacles in the later, more intricate courses, make this a very tentative recommendation for me. If you love overhead racing games like I do, then go ahead and pick it up. You'll probably survive past the issues. If you're somebody who isn't sure that you like these kind of games, or you typically don't, I'd say pass for now, at least until they work out the kinks. Oh, and this game desperately needs online multiplayer. I hope you guys got something out of this one, and I'll see you in the next video.